welcome back to the Cover 3 podcast here on CBS Sports. That's Tom Fornelli. I'm Chip Patterson, coming to you live at youtube.com/cover3 and everywhere you get your podcasts on demand. Thanks for hanging out. Smash that subscribe, smash that like, and come and join us in the chat, a.k.a. the Cover 3 Tailgate, which is rocking and rolling because it is interactive here on a Thursday. We have questions coming from the big old bag of mail, where if you left us a 5-star review and you put a question in that review, we have added it to the future mailbag questions. And we also love those of you who come and get the conversations going in the tailgate. So before we get to what you see here in the headline, some of the biggest spring transfer portal moves, before we follow up on some more conversations from the week, including a year one look at the group of five, let's jump on into that tailgate. This one's a little fun. Our friend Richard at 8:28 a.m. Eastern time, early bird, to the name, gets us going with a good look. Richard asks, if we set the line at 1.5, would you take the over or under of repeat conference champions? And he's detailing power conference champions, it looks like, in the upcoming season. So last year, for those of you listening at home who can't see it on the screen at youtube.com/cover3, last year, Oregon won the Big Ten, Georgia won the SEC, Arizona State won the Big 12, and Clemson won the ACC. So Tom, if the line that Richard has set is at 1.5, are you going over under for repeat conference champions?
I would go under. I think that Georgia is the most likely, but even that I'm not overly confident on. Like the Big 12, Arizona State could, but we've gone over the Big 12,
right?
With the random number generator. I think Clemson has a very good shot of winning the ACC. So I think maybe they would actually be the favorite of these four, just because like Georgia's got to get through Texas and a bunch of other teams, whereas Clemson's really only got to worry about Miami from what we know right now. And then Oregon in the Big 10, I mean, they're kind of resetting a little bit. While I think their defense is going to be pretty damn good this year. I think I have some questions about their offense. So I would go under. I think, yeah. I don't think you're going to see a lot of repeat action.
See, Clemson is my easy one. Then I start looking for my second. I'm with you on Oregon. I think they're still going to be good, but man, the Ohio State, Penn State sort of, power up top is going to be really tough for me to go out of the way to say the Ducks are going to be able to repeat winning the league in year one. Arizona State, a favorite, to win the Big 12. But hey, Tom, do you think we're going to talk about Georgia at all over this offseason?
Probably not. There's rarely ever a reason to.
Rarely ever a reason. Where are you at with Georgia? Our friend Brandon Marcello put together a post-spring top 25 at cbssports.com. And he mentioned something that I think that I've sort of picked up on. Either you are just believing in A, Gunnar Stockton, B, the transfer portal additions, and C, it being Georgia, or you are starting to take a little bit of a pause at sort of where the Bulldogs are at, which is crazy because they won the daggum SEC last year, as we were talking about. But, as a lot of Alabama is going to have a good bounce back sort of conversation. A lot of LSU is your dark horse kind of conversation. And Texas, as you mentioned, I think in my eyes is the favorite in the SEC. I don't think I've heard from you. What's your sort of temperature on the Dogs going into next year?
I mean, I feel like there's a certain floor that they're going to hit every single year. Like they're going to win at least 9 games, just
right,
based on the way that they've recruited and all that kind of stuff. It's hard to see them losing more than 3 times, but that like 9-3 feels like, oh wow, they had a terrible season. Worst case scenario. Offensive line wasn't able to replace all those guys. Defense, they couldn't really replace them. Quarterback Gunnar Stockton just didn't live up to the hype. Still no receivers emerged. Like if all that happens, oh god, they're only going to win 9 games. Because they're still going to be like extremely better than everybody they're playing on most weekends. So they're still an SEC title contender to me, but they're not really my favorite. I look at Texas as the favorite to win that league. I think Alabama is going to be better. I think LSU is going to be pretty good again, or at least better than they have been. Like it's just the question of the league. Like they'll be in the playoff, I think. I think that is really it. Like they might have to play in the first round on the road, and that would be the disaster season for the Bulldogs.
Georgia is dealing with something that we dealt with Alabama, especially, in recent years in the late Saban era. We're comparing you to the other Alabama, like we're comparing Georgia to the other Georgia teams, which you look at Georgia's defense and compared to the other defenses in the SEC, they still have one of the best defenses in the SEC. Among the last 5 Georgia defenses, they might be 4th or 5th.
But the wild card is, what if Gunnar Stockton's good?
Oh, I know. And that would be awesome. That would be a lot of fun.
But I do think that I do wonder about their offensive line. Like, there's part of me that the way they have recruited and developed, I give them the benefit of the doubt. Like, the offensive line's not going to be bad. But the offensive line last year, particularly on the outside at the tackle spot, to me was not really up to the typical Georgia standard. I thought the interior of their line was great, and they've lost key guys from the interior. And we'll remember, if you go back last season, when Tate Ratledge was out hurt, they did not look good without Tate Ratledge. And now he's gone for good. He's off into the NFL. So I think that's one of the more underserved storylines because of Carson Beck leaving and because of some of the guys that they lost on the defensive side of the ball. Is I don't know what that offensive line is going to look like. And if it's not your typical Georgia offensive line with all the other questions that we kind of have, it could be a little spotty at times.
Yeah, I will say to wrap this up for Richard, it sounds like we got a couple unders, but I tell you what, it ain't more than 2 in terms of repeat.
I mean, Clemson, I could see it. Georgia, I could still see it. And if Dante Moore is good and Oregon's defense is as good as a lot of people anticipate it's going to be, because they are very talented on that side of the ball, I think Oregon can win the Big Ten again, because if you look at Ohio State, they're replacing a lot. Michigan, we really don't know. Penn State has loaded up, and I know that they're the popular team because of it, but until Penn State starts beating those teams, I'm really not just going to assume they're going to win the conference.
Have you filled out your coach rankings ballot?
Yes.
Okay. Not next week, but the week after is when we are going to be discussing our coach rankings ballots here on the Cover 3 podcast. And that Tom will be writing up the article for CBSSports.com. We will be, we will be reacting to the overall rankings also here on the show. So a lot of time to be talking about coaches and how they stack up next to each other. I've not put the numbers next to the names. I've started kicking it around. If Dan Lanning wins the Big Ten year 1 and year 2, we got to start talking about him like a top X coach, top 5 coach in this sport.
Yeah. If he wins the league twice in 2 years, yeah. But he won't be top 5 if he wins the Big Ten again and then completely gets his ass handed to him in the playoff again.
Yeah, that's true.
Like, he's going to have to win a playoff game, or else it's still going to be he can't win the big one. Which is just one of my favorite narratives.
Oh, of course. The best. I mean, where's Sean Miller? All right. Zoom, Greg Baker, Carson, Paul, Ian, Connor, Nathan, Will, Steven. We appreciate you getting the conversation started. We're going to be continuing to hit up the tailgate for questions as well as the big old bag of mail. First, we don't necessarily need, big, I mean, if we really wanted to play the game, we could do 8+ minutes on, President Trump, Nick Saban, President Trump, Nick Saban, President Trump, Nick Saban. But for the purposes of conversation, that drives us right to what I'm most interested in. What do you think can come? Like, what is the best case outcome of a presidential commission with co-chaired by Nick Saban and Cody Campbell, the NIL king of Texas Tech?
What's the best case scenario?
Yeah, what is the best case scenario for
they
college?
Don't damage anything. That's the best case scenario. Like, nobody gets hurt. Like, it's impossible to do these days because that's all anybody ever cares about. But politics aside, I don't care. Anybody can be president. Who's your favorite person in the world? Like, who's the most popular human being alive right now?
Oh, I was going to say favorite person in the world is my wife.
God, you're such a like, that's just, somebody who's just universally beloved. They could be president of the United States right now.
Right.
I don't want the president of the United States having anything to do with college football. I don't want Senate having anything to do with college football. I don't want the Congress at all. I don't want government involved in this. Go do your jobs, man. Like, it's stupid. It is kind of, Nick Saban shows up. Like, honestly, what are they going to do? Is he going to issue an executive order that says, okay, now you're all employees? Like, it's not that easy. It doesn't work that way.
I unfortunately have gone to all the different ways that this ends up poor, right? Like, I asked for the best possible outcome because all my mind has gone to is like, oh gosh, they are going to convince Congress to put in an NIL cap, or to your point, an executive order that says no one can make more than X amount of dollars. And then we're going to have lawsuits. And now these lawsuits are going to be even more contentious and sticky because it's not suing the NCAA. You'd be suing the federal government. And how's that going to work? And are we going to go to the Supreme Court? Are we going to have the legal aides with great 40 times come running down the steps of the Supreme Court, holding out how much money Jeremiah Smith's going to be able to make? Because that would be ridiculous and a waste of all of our time.
Like, let's look at the people who are likely to be on this committee. The people that we know, you mentioned Nick Saban, greatest coach of all time.
Right.
And the Texas Tech super booster oil man, Cody Campbell, who is the guy cutting the checks.
See, I will say there's some yin and yang to this that I do appreciate.
No, there is not.
There's not?
No, the coach and the guy cutting the check are on the same side. The coach wants the player. The guy cutting the check wants to get him for as little as he can.
Oh, but I would say the behavior of Texas Tech suggests that they want a free market because they're always going to be able to spend more.
They do, but they're going to want a cap on that market. Like, that's how every businessman works. Yes, they want a free market, but they don't want to lose money with it. They want the market to exist in a world where they're still making a bunch of it.
Okay.
So out of all the possible outcomes of this group as being put together, 90% of them involve in the players getting screwed. Like, the players won't have a free market. The schools will have a free market because the players aren't going to have anybody at the table. Who's at the table for the players? Who is the great player representative? Who's the one person who could represent an entire, how many guys are on scholarship across the country right now? At the FBS level, there's going to be 135 schools this year, 85 scholarships each. I'm not doing that math, but that's a lot of players. That's about 90-something thousand people.
What player would be able to sit on this committee?
I don't know. That's the point. Like, it's a point. This is a political thing. We see politicians do this all the time. This is pandering. That's all it is. I'm doing my best to fix it for you because I know you think it's a problem. And then you just go on and move on to the next thing. Every single president, every single politician has done this since the beginning of time. I highly doubt anything productive comes out of any of this.
Andrew Luck? Drew Pine? Drew Pine has seen some stuff. Can we send Drew Pine to the Presidential Commission?
Sure. I mean, wait, no, Ty Buckner, because he's both football and lacrosse. So,
that's true.
He's got cross sport knowledge. He knows what it's like to be in the real money sports and the sports nobody cares about. He could speak for all sides.
Maybe it can be something else. Of course, as a show, I mean, I wouldn't say this reverberated through the college football world, but this is certainly something that our show has addressed. So Nathan, he jumped in about an hour before we got started. Tom, can Cam Rising announce his retirement if he's already dead? Does this finally close the book on the 2018 quarterback class? By the way, thanks for the dad advice in the mailbag several weeks ago. Yes, Nathan did jump in the 5-star big old bag of mail. He also hangs out, watches us live. We appreciate you in the tailgate. Cam Rising, according to this statement, I assume by his family and loved ones on his official social media account, that there was the hand injury in the Baylor game all the way back long time ago, has seen multiple specialists. And they said that's it. It was RIP, and he's done with football. Thoughts on the latest supposed development in the Cam Rising saga?
Rest in peace. I'm happy he's out of purgatory and he's finally ascended to the land of college football heaven. I mean, Adam Driver can tweet from an account and say, my name's Cam Rising. It's really not that hard to do.
That's true. And he was in this, and he said the the 2018 recruiting class. He was, as we've mentioned often, in the same recruiting class as Trevor Lawrence and Justin Fields and Micah Parsons
and Tyler Shuck
and Tyler. What a stretch! Good gravy. Jamar Chase is in that recruiting class.
These are old men.
These are people getting big second contracts.
These people have families now. They've got like 3 kids, a couple mortgages.
Cam Rising
might have 3 kids and a couple mortgages at this point, honestly.
So he
was alive.
He went undrafted. I believe he might have had some eligibility left, but I don't know. One more from
He might have had. I mean, it's just apropos of it, like how funny that is that he might still have some eligibility left. He's been around for 7 years. He might still be eligible. So,
and of course, remember, he was at Texas, and he was at Utah. He is now an assistant. He's an assistant coach at the high school that he played at. So he's obviously taking on coaching. And look,
that's legitimately cool.
Yes. I was going to say, so keep your eyes out because we might be seeing Adam Driver working his way up through the coaching ranks. So we wish him the best of luck with his next journey in football.
I mean, that would be cool to have like Kylo Ren coaching your football team. I'm excited for those players.
Let's do one more here from the tailgate before we hit a break and come back. For Tom, who's the best comparison to Arteta, who is the Arsenal manager in the college football world? For those who weren't following, Arsenal went into Paris, but came up a couple goals short, losing 2-1 in the match, 3-1 on aggregate to Paris Saint-Germain as PSG advances to the Champions League final where they will play Inter. What do we think? Who is the Arteta of college football? Is it Miguel? Is it Miguel or Mikhail? Miguel.
It's Miguel.
Miguel. Okay.
For context for our listeners who don't watch the sport, like Mikel Arteta has built a dynasty of teams that finish in second, third, or fourth place. Never wins anything. And when they lose, it's never his fault. The refs always screwed him, or his team just got unlucky. And he never changes his strategy. It's the same thing every single time. And he just can't figure out why he never actually ends up winning it. I would say, based purely on results, not strategy or philosophy, because these guys have changed things up and they just haven't cracked through. I would say, yeah, Brian Kelly's probably the best one. Just because attitude-wise. Lincoln, because there is some stubbornness.
Yeah.
But Lincoln's adapting right now. So it's like, that's one of those things that's actually encouraging if you are a USC fan, is there's stuff going on behind the scenes that really might not show up on the football field on Saturday right away, but is a good sign both for Lincoln and for that program. But yeah, I would say Lincoln going from Oklahoma to USC is a pretty good, that's a very good comp actually, because it was always like Lincoln was very defensive anytime you kind of questioned his, like with Alex Grinch and all that stuff, he would get very defensive, and Mikel Arteta is very much the same way when you question him. So yeah, that's a very good call, Chip. Good answer.
The tailgate is singing a chorus of James Franklin here.
But James Franklin's not an asshole.
Okay. What about just results?
Just results? Yeah, but
because like we've got a little bit of a blue blood that isn't like winning it all, but is, in the mix. Maybe.
Yeah, but James has tried different things.
Yeah.
So
and to your point about Lincoln Riley, we're not going to be hitting every minor staff change as a headline item here on the show. Some of that I expect that because we're following this stuff just comes up organically, but we had already talked about Chad Bowden coming in as the general manager. I guess you're referencing also they're changing around their their strength and performance. I'm calling it strength and conditioning. They've all got weird names for them, like athletic performance or whatever. But those off-field roles that play a huge factor in the development of your team, it looks like they are starting to change over some of those positions as well. Is that something you were pointing to?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So USC, a lot of the off-field, sort of below the radar stuff. There are a lot of people who believe smart hires are being made. necessary changes for a program that had kind of been coasting on just
being USC.
Being USC.
Or USC, we're going to get all the best talent from California.
Yep. So,
then, yeah.
Good signs ahead for the Trojans. I agree with you. Well, coming up on the other side, we are moved beyond. There's still a few players who are starting to commit, but over the last weekend, we really saw the final wave of notable commitments from the spring transfer portal. What were some of the biggest moves that we took note of, and more of your questions next?
The clock never stops. Relive the greatest moments with uninterrupted highlights and more.
It's Gareth Bale! Ronaldo! Wonderful goal!
On the UEFA Champions League channel. Streaming free.
Back here on the Cover 3 podcast. And yes, I forgot who mentioned it in the tailgate, but Cam Rising's former high school, where he is now an offensive coordinator, has a 4-star quarterback who I believe is a Michigan pledge at this early point in the cycle. So fun. It'll be fun to continue to track that, especially through the lens of a power conference quarterback prospect. Okay. This question comes from me. Tom, what were some of the biggest moves or the moves of note of most impact from the spring portal window that got your attention?
Well, let me start by saying that the spring portal window, like the winter window, kind of sucked. There weren't really any kind of huge moves like that we've seen in the last few years where big name players leave to go to another school. There was one, the obvious one, Nico.
Right.
I mean, I think that to me is really the biggest of them all and most obvious of them all, because even if you look, like I'm taking some time here to get these rankings up. If you look at the transfer rankings from 24/7 Sports, which Bud's not here, so I could say I really don't put a lot of stock in.
Whoa. Hold on. Let's bring some clarity here. I do put a lot of stock in the player ratings. I do not overreact to the team rankings. Like, for example, according to the player ratings, and to your point, of the top 200 players in the portal, 24 of them were spring portal. The rest of them were in the winter. So in terms of like landscape shifting, player movement, it was not happening in the spring. And then there's even the larger conversation about, those players are only ranked against each other. Was the overall talent of the portal in general? Was that as much landscape shifting? And that answer could be not as much as in previous years as well. But in the spring, according to my count of the player ratings, 24 of the top 200 were in the spring.
But the point I was going to make was there were 3 5-stars in the portal this offseason altogether. Only one of them was in the spring. It was Nico. The other 2 were Isaiah World, the offensive tackle who transferred from Nevada to Oregon, which I've shared my thoughts on that. And then Damon Wilson, who was transferring from Georgia to Missouri, who was, a very highly rated guy out of high school, but hasn't really cracked through in Georgia, is now ending up at Missouri. So is he really a 5-star? So it's just being blunt. I would say that was clearly the Nico thing, because you don't typically see guys like that come open, or we didn't see anybody like that this year. And it was very much kind of unexpected and kind of late in the process, in that there really wasn't, there might've been buzz on like a Tennessee message board, but nationally there wasn't a whole hell of a lot of buzz about, hey, Nico might be leaving Tennessee this offseason. And it just kind of bubbled up, and in like a matter of days, it was already done. He was gone to UCLA. So I think that's huge, because I think it's big for UCLA, because they've seriously upgraded at quarterback, and it has kind of thrown Tennessee into we have no idea what to make of them kind of situation, because you can talk about how Nico did not really live up to the hype last year, but we also mentioned on the show, he's probably better than the guy that got to replace him. So Tennessee, it leaves up in the air. Other ones, Jaden Knott going from Cal to Oklahoma, I think is kind of important, because Ott was a very good player at Cal a couple years ago, got hurt, got kind of lost in the shuffle a bit on the depth chart because other guys stepped up while he was out. And now he's going to a team where I think the combination of him and Mateer in that backfield is interesting and exciting. and it could lead to a lot of explosive plays on that offense, which I don't think they had as much of last year as you've kind of grown accustomed to Oklahoma having. So to me, those two far and away stood out as the most impactful. And the other thing is, it's like there will be transfers that we didn't pay much attention to that have a huge impact on teams, because so many of the transfers that are going on in this session, both in the winter and the spring, are kind of filling gaps. And they're not really big name players as much as they're guys that kind of fit what a team is looking for. And there's a role to be had, and that role will be used very well. And that guy will flourish in that role. So it's hard to kind of judge now, because that is kind of what the transfer portal is to me, going back to what we were just talking about when it comes to the overall team rankings. Like, this is very much a coin flip on a lot of this. Like, you don't know the situation when you move in. There aren't guys, like some guys transfer and they're just so talented that you can put them anywhere and they're going to go be great. But it's hard to do that with entire classes. It's hard to do that with new coaches, new schemes, all of that stuff. So it's really difficult to predict. So I'm just going off the two most talented guys, I think, that were in the portal, at least on the offensive side of the ball, were Nico and Ott.
A couple of ones that might have fallen through the cracks that I think will be significant from the spring. LSU defensively was not very good against the run last year. They got a player named Bernard Gooden, who I think a lot of people look at that and say that is the kind of move that can solidify the interior of your defensive line. Miami went out and got more weapons to be able to help Carson Beck and this offense be able to not replicate what Cam Ward was able to do. Keelan Marion, from coming over from BYU, that was another one that was pretty big. But here are the ones more on what you just said, and then a few others that I had written down. So the other side of this, Joey Aguilar to Tennessee, very interesting, because I've heard from people around Tennessee that the combination of the this is dramatic, but the emotional trauma of the Nico experience, the highs of his commitment, the anticipation of what he can be, him torching all their non-con, like you are just flying so close to the sun. And then you add a little bit of a humbling. Then you anticipate the good 2025 with another year of development. Then he leaves. I mean, that has been just an absolute roller coaster that has them looking at Aguilar, somebody who totaled 56 touchdowns and more than 6,700 passing yards. You just throw those numbers out there, and Tennessee brain is like, all right, well, Josh knows what to do with him. Well, he's still got to go prove it. And I do think that if I can bring Bud's favorite term, he says sawed off talking about the arms of a pass rusher. I'm going to say sawed off talking about what Tennessee's ceiling is, right? Like I think there is still a very high floor for Tennessee football this year, just because of the way that they have recruited, developed, and built up that program. But I do think that what they could have accomplished with Nico, if Nico had been able to take a step forward, is remaining in that 10-win conversation, remaining in that SEC championship conversation. I think Joey Aguilar can be very good I think he can be very good for Tennessee in that offense, but I do think it has changed their ceiling. But to your point, my biggest impact of the swap is that UCLA is in a way better position. I mean, just undoubtedly, they have the opportunity now to be able to make a bowl game because they've got the better quarterback than the opponent. And so for Deshaun Foster, that was a big win. So Nico, not only number one in the player ratings, but also I think very impactful because of what he brings to where he goes. I'll follow up like what you said on Jaden Ott. John Mateer. I've got this image of watching John Mateer and being like, woo-wee, this, look how much fun this guy is. Putting some numbers to it. 44 total touchdowns to just 7 interceptions. That is 29 passing, 15 rushing. He did have, he had a little bit of the bakery aisle on that schedule. You go out there with 6 total touchdowns against the easiest teams that you face. A little cupcakey at times, just because of the way that the Cougs had to build it. He's not going to have as much space. He's not going to have that much athletic dominance as he faces SEC defenses, but still something that I agree with you. Ott and John Mateer makes that really, really fun. Go ahead.
Just a couple stat lines that should cause pause. And again, doesn't mean he can't do well, but there were like a lot of bad games. Considering, like against Texas Tech, he was 9 of 19. Against Washington, he was 17 of 34. It's like when the competition got a little bit harder, like he played well against Boise State as far as passing, but some of that could be the players that were around him, but he had a receiver in Kyle Williams that was, pretty high draft pick too at Washington State. So I don't know. I would lean more on Ott and those running backs than I would on Mateer if I'm Oklahoma, but that's just me.
He, let me see, because of course, sacks are going to end up getting counted for rushing attempts. But I mean, I just going back through, this guy had double-digit rushing attempts in all but 3 games. Again, sacks are going to end up being a part of that as well. But it is it's going to be interesting to see how Ben Arbuckle, his offensive coordinator, ends up moving forward.
The linebackers that he was facing are going from 6'1", 195 to 200 pounds to 6'3", 215. So when he's running the ball, the hits are going to feel a little different.
And they're also faster too.
Yeah,
they're taller, they're heavier, and they're faster. Speaking of the SEC, Georgia waited until spring practice was done, obviously, and they surveyed everything. And I don't know if it's alarm bells or if I think it's really smart, but they brought in a player from Army named Elo Medozi, who I think could be really, really good. They have had in their defensive front a lot of, shocker, blue chip players, players with good size, good projections. They've had trouble keeping everybody healthy. They didn't have a lot of obvious experience. And with the addition of Medozi, people are kind of penciling him into that jack spot that Michael Williams had this past year, very much like a pass rush specialist. You mentioned the loss of Damon Wilson. In total, Georgia has lost 29 of its 37 team sacks from last year. Medozi can be that kind of player who steps in. He's got good size, so he's not going to get knocked off the ball by SEC offenses. 6'3", 245 pounds. I'm multiple years of eligibility too. And look, this is when I can get a little knuckle draggy. Listen, he's got discipline, Tom.
Yes, I was about to say the same damn thing.
He's from the United States Military Academy.
Yes.
We need to bring some discipline to this front seven. Let's go.
Get it in the locker room.
The
players need to police each other. Yes.
Bring in somebody. I thought that he was, an American Athletic Conference champion last year. I thought that he was somebody of note. Speaking of pass rushers, David Bailey, it was a little bit before the spring window opened because he got cut loose when Troy Taylor got fired by Stanford. Texas Tech now has David Bailey on one side, Romello Height potentially on the other side, just a couple of really athletic and talented outside linebacker, edge rusher types that will continue to add the height for Texas Tech making a run at the Big Ten. And then I took a little bit of a stretch here. When Trevor Pena left Syracuse, you had the quotes from Fran Brown, and he was talking about $2 million for a wide receiver. I'm not going to pay you $2 million for a wide receiver. Only wide receiver who should be getting $2 million is at Ohio State. Of course, like a loose reference to Jeremiah Smith. So when Trevor Pena ends up at Penn State and he becomes yet another transfer portal addition at the wide receiver spot where they've already gone and gotten Kyron Hudson from USC. They've gotten Devontae Ross from Troy, one of Troy's best wide receivers from last year. I don't think they got him for $2 million, but it certainly felt like a luxury addition. And that to me is that's an all-in move. Penn State is a top 4 team in my eyes going into next season. And they could have not gotten Trevor Pena, and I would have said, yeah, they're a top 4 team. And look, they added Trevor Pena, and I'm not moving them off being the 4th best team, but it is that, okay, Drew Aller's probably gone after this year. Singleton Allen gone after this year. Deni Dennis Sutton gone after this year. You go out and you poach Jim Knowles. Adding all of these pieces, it is, to me, very clearly one of those things where James Franklin is going to have the message about the standard and everything he needs to do to tell that locker room. But when the coaching staff is together And when you put the truth serum in them, I think they understand that this is it. That this is a window where last year they made it to the semifinals and came really, really close to being able to play for a national championship, and that they are willing to maybe overspend. Again, I don't think that they got $2 million, but I would not be surprised if there was an overspending on Trevor Pena that was sort of done with the idea of like, yeah, but this is the time to overspend.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think, like you said, I don't think he got $2 million from Penn State. I wouldn't be surprised if, like, just for context, and again, I've already made my feelings on these known, but of available transfer receivers this offseason, Trevor Pena ranks 26th in 24/7's recruit rank or transfer rankings of players. But in the spring portal, if you're Penn State and you've done all that you have to get these guys to come back and to kind of load up for 2025, hoping to go get that ring, and you do feel like you need a receiver still, somebody who can fill a gap, yeah, you'd be willing to overspend compared to what the market value might say the guy's actually worth. It's no different than like in professional sports where you overspend on a free agent because they fill a need that you desperately have. So for sure, I don't think Trevor Pena is a game changer. I don't think he's going to be one of the best receivers in the country, but I do think that I do think he could play a role for Penn State that they need, and I do think he could have a productive season for him. And if they think that's the one thing that they were missing, then overspend, man, because nobody's going to give a shit how much money you spent if you end up winning the Big Ten and getting to the national title.
Yeah, we don't have salary caps. Trevor Pena is a graduate student on a 1-year deal, that expires after this. It's a rental, and you are going to overspend for that rental, because there is nothing wrong with having more talented pass catchers for an offense that has been woefully short on game-changing pass catchers. So you might as well put as much talent out there, see who's able to get adjusted, see what the roles are going to end up looking like in the fall. Andy Kotelnicki always willing to take more talent as opposed to less talent. So while the addition of Trevor Pena individually, I'm not saying changes my expectations for Penn State, I think the action of going to get a player like that, given the circumstances, further drives home. Penn State knows 2025 is a year to really go for it. So I'm definitely excited about that one. Let's see. Any others in? Oh yeah. You mentioned, was Max a winter or was he a spring?
I don't know.
Max Clare from
Purdue. Might have been a spring.
Yeah, that Max Clare from Purdue to Ohio State. That was, I know you had shouted him out before as someone who you think is going to end up being like a real name by the time we get into No,
that was in December. That was a winter.
That was a winter one. Let's see. UNC lost guys to Penn State and Ohio State. Yeah, Penn State was Amari Campbell, the linebacker. Ohio State was Bo Atkinson. Tar Heels, even as recently as this morning, still adding players. I mean, it is.
Listen, Jordan made a decision. Trust in Jordan. Let those guys walk.
They said, you know what they said? They said, and so there's a company that comes to my kids' preschool. They come and they do school photos, right? You don't pay anything until the school photos are done. Then you get a chance to buy them. You can buy them the first round, or you can wait a week or two, and then they send out that 20% off code, right?
Yes.
North Carolina's just waiting for those 20% off codes to come through. Hey, Oklahoma State linebacker who hasn't been picked up yet. Looks like you would take a different number now, wouldn't you? Come on down,
Michael Lombardi sitting at the kitchen table just cutting coupons on
Yes!
there every morning.
Yes. Waiting for they're waiting to go get. Oh, this is a throwback showing our age.
Ooh, Bill, did you see the sale?
Man, when you could go and get like when you could go and get whatchamacallit, like you would go to a electronics store and there would be the bucket of DVDs right by the checkout line for $5.99 each. Like basketball on DVD for $5.99. Sure.
You'd be stupid not to buy
it. Yeah. Garrett, another guy that Bud is going to try to claim was his when it was actually Tom. Oh, Max. You think so?
Yeah. We'll see.
Long history of that. All right. Coming up on the other side, continuing your questions, our answers, and a continuation of the year one coach conversation and more. Next.
Get ready.
Wait a second. I thought we were going tubing.
All 3 Sonic the Hedgehog movies and Knuckles are now streaming on Paramount Plus.
And everyone loves it.
Every adventure,
Just try to keep up.
every face-off,
This ends now.
and every moment that will have you saying,
Where have you been? My entire life!
It's showtime.
all 3 Sonic the Hedgehog movies and the entire Sonic universe are now streaming on Paramount Plus.
Back here on the Cover 3 podcast. Let's take a question from the tailgate. Ian, which of the college football playoff teams from last year, parentheses, not including Indiana, do you think could have the biggest regression for this upcoming season?
Arizona State.
Win count or quality?
Just, yeah, win count. They could finish 7-5. It's the Big 12. I was going to ask, we were talking about this earlier, right? There are 11 teams currently in the Big 12, if you look at conference title futures, that are 10-1 or higher. If I just place money on all 10 of those, or all 11 of them at 10-1 or higher, what are the odds I make money?
Have you run the math on this yet?
I'm just asking, what do you think? Do you think there's a 50-50 chance I will make money in the end? Keeping in mind that if the 2 10-1 teams win, I will lose a
Right. I was going to say no, because while we discuss the parity of the Big 12, I don't think now there's as much. I think we've got a better sense of the way the conference is tiered out.
You sure?
I very much could be wrong, but I don't know. I think.
Okay. Well, let me see if I can. I'm trying to find it again. I'm trying to stall for time because I will go back and I will list you the teams that are currently 10-1 or higher.
Because, all right, look, the example that you're going to use is that Oklahoma State and Utah were supposed to be the favorites. And so therefore, they changed.
You can stop now.
Okay.
Thank you. The teams that are currently listed at 10-1 or higher: Utah at 10-1, TCU at 10-1, Iowa State at 12-1, Kansas at 15, Colorado at 18, Cincinnati at 35, Houston 40, UCF 45, Oak State 55, West Virginia 65, Arizona 70. You don't think there's a decent chance one of those teams will end up winning the Big 12?
You don't think that SMU could have the biggest regression?
Yeah, they could, but I'm talking about the Big 12 right now.
I know. You just wait.
Like Kansas State's 475, Arizona State's 475, Texas Tech is 7-1, BYU is 7-1, Baylor is 8-1. Nothing against any of those teams, but like if they don't win the Big 12, how surprised are you going to be? So it's like last year we saw all the teams that were favored to win that league they finished in the bottom third of the league. It's such a coin flip. Like everybody's a 3-point favorite at home against everybody else.
Okay, so what if we bet everybody except for what if we so 16 teams in the Big 12 or 14?
16.
Okay. So what if we
are betting on 11 divided by 16.
I will
67% of the teams.
If you bet on Arizona at plus 6,500, if you bet $100, then you lose $100. So let's throw out Arizona.
No, I'm concluding them all. If I put $10 on each one of them, I bet you I make money. So it might only be $15, but I bet you I end up making money.
I have no. All right. Let's play this game on the fly. Big 12. No, it sounds like your answer is going to be all of them. Big 12 teams that you think won't win the Big 12. How many teams are on that list?
Well, first of all, 15 of them can't win it. So,
but
there's no team of those 16 where I could sit here and definitively say has no chance to win that league. No.
I think Arizona, Oklahoma State, UCF.
Okay.
Cincinnati.
Okay.
And West Virginia.
Sure. Oh, so
No, West Virginia off.
No. I need another graphic. Chip, I will bet my house that West Virginia can't win the Big 12 this year.
No more house bets. All right. I have worked too damn hard to obtain real estate in this world.
You know what? I'm going to do it. I'm going to bet all 11 of those teams to win the Big 12.
I will back it up. UCF and West Virginia have had absolute wholesale changes to that roster and just rebuilding everything in the midst of coaching changes. Cincinnati is a general distrust of Cincinnati because even if they were to backdoor their way into contention, you still got to get the job done with expectations, get to Dallas and win the game.
Can I ask you a question though?
Sure.
Tell me with a straight face that you wouldn't have said the same damn thing about Arizona State at this time last year. They were coming off a 2-10 season with an unknown at quarterback. Second-year coach. First year in a new league. Are you going to sit here and tell me that if you'd asked me the same question 12 months ago, you wouldn't be like, well, I'll tell you what, I'm writing Arizona State off. They don't have a chance to win the league.
Arizona State was a loss on a lot of team schedules and win totals.
Yeah. This is my point.
But it can't be Arizona, right?
It can be.
Oh, my gosh. Yeah. All right. So we're going to do $10 on every single.
Yeah, I'm going to do $10 on each one. Okay. So the worst, I might lose $110, but I might win $10. So it's a can't lose.
So right now at FanDuel Sportsbook, where you can make every moment more, even if you're, hey, look, no, at the worst, you aren't going to lose $110. At the worst, you lose $55.
If
you bet
all 11 lose, that's 11 times 10.
Oh, you said 11.
Yeah.
Okay, you're gonna pick my 11.
I will shop around though. I will pick the best number from different books.
Okay.
I'm not. I mean, I am a professional, folks. I mean, let's be real.
Come on. Okay, so you might lose $100, but you could, if you end up getting one of these long shots, could end up seeing something special.
Yeah. On Monday, I will list my bets.
Okay. Betting every Big 12 team to win the Big 12. Let's see how it goes. We had a commenter in the tailgate yesterday who wanted to chime in on the year one. We're going through our year one coaches and, sort of reviewing whether or not they met expectations, how they did, and what the outlook is moving forward. There was a question about, not just some of the ones we talked about, but other ones, including from the Group of Five conference. Wanted to at least give them a shine before the week is over. Tulane, John Summerall, year one, 7-1 in conference play, made it to the conference title game, 9-5 overall by the end of it. Would you say Tulane met, exceeded?
I would say Met. They had a very good year, but Tulane was already pretty good shape before he took over. So I'd say Met.
Let's see. Other year one coaches from outside the
power
conference.
I would say Bryant Vincent greatly exceeded expectations at ULM.
ULM, yeah.
The ending was rough, but they got off to a very good start. Spencer Danielson, just recounting him.
Year and a half, first full season.
Yeah,
sure.
I would say it went well.
Yep.
Got to the playoff. Pete Lembo, I think, did a pretty solid job at Buffalo. Bronco Mendenhall did a solid job in New Mexico.
So solid.
Exactly. Bob Chesney, I would say Met. Maybe, considering how good James Madison had been, maybe that's a slight disappointment if you're a Dukes fan.
It's a slight disappointment the way they finished. JMU fans were rock solid after they put 1 billion points on Carolina in the early part of the season. But I think the Dukes were hoping to be a bigger factor coming down the stretch in the Sun Belt. They took a couple lumps in conference play.
But if you are a James Madison fan, do you take any joy out of what happened at Indiana? Because that was your coach and a lot of your players. So maybe that, or are you butthurt about it? That's interesting.
Maybe.
I think I would be happy. I think I would understand my place in the world.
I would say Bob Chesney maybe has some work to do. You'd like to see that team competing for Sun Belt titles, given the success that they've had.
Mm-hmm. Elsewhere, I mean, Scott Walden at UTEP, I don't really have a strong take on. Jeff Choate, I thought at Nevada, they looked competitive, even if the record wasn't great. Kenny Niumatalolo exceeded expectations. I think he exceeded everybody's expectations at San Jose State. Major Applewhite at South Alabama, I would say met, but then you lose Gio Lopez and Fluff Bothwell. That hurts.
Mm-hmm.
Del McGee at Georgia State. Do you have a strong opinion?
No.
Yeah. Oh, it's because, it's the G5, Chip. Who cares? They suck.
Well, the thing was, you did the bit, and then we finished and looked at the list, and we were like, damn, we like these guys.
Yes, I know. Well, we like the G5. That's the
we
thing.
Like John, we like Ken. Like these are coaches that we've been buying stock in for quite some time.
We were already 62 minutes into the show, and it was like, I'm looking at the clock. I'm like, I don't know, man. I don't really want to do another 20 minutes.
Let's see. From yesterday's pod, Clemson Notre Dame rivalry can be the Reformation. Will, I'll tell you this. I had Catholics versus Baptists as like just the first thing that came to mind. But I feel like I can get a little deeper with that, like
priests versus pastors.
The
The alliteration works. How about just Notre Dame versus Clemson?
Incense versus snake holders. Also on that topic, Steven, do you think the ACC will stay a league through the 12-year contract between Clemson and Notre Dame? Does this contract mean Clemson no longer wants to leave the ACC? No.
I mean, the ACC as a name will exist, I think. But it won't look anything like the ACC does right now. You might still have a few of those schools. You probably have a lot of American Athletic Conference schools in there too.
Do you know what was another part of this that I didn't think about at the time and has been pointed out since then is the SEC is considering to expand its conference schedule. And that started to get a lot more commotion. That'll be a topic at their spring meetings here over the next couple of weeks. Clemson has Georgia and Oklahoma, I think a combined 5 more times on their future schedules. Remember they played Georgia in the opener last year?
Mm-hmm.
Clemson getting Notre Dame could be security if those Clemson, Georgia, and those Clemson, Oklahoma games end up having to get scrapped.
Good point. Yep.
So to the whole, like, what Clemson's ultimate motivations to this, if Clemson leaves the ACC and goes to another conference, they keep this rivalry with Notre Dame. If Clemson loses games against Georgia or Oklahoma because the SEC expands its schedule, they still maintain a good non-conference schedule because of having Notre Dame. So those are things that I would keep an eye on.
If Clemson leaves the ACC, you think Big Ten or SEC are more likely?
Do you have a?
My gut says SEC.
Right.
I just think culturally they're a better fit.
Right.
Whereas Florida State, to me, oddly enough, I think feels more Big Ten.
It's been a while since I've done the realignment bingo.
North Carolina feels more Big Ten.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Oh, but the SEC will want North Carolina pretty badly.
Where's
North Carolina's in a great spot.
Where's the dude from West Virginia?
Jordan, not Michael.
Yeah. Where's the dude from West Virginia?
Dude.
Where's Swam? Get me all my realignment all stars from back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
And then here we go. One last one to take us home. This happens every season. Which team or teams do you think have the talent/potential to go from unranked the end of last season to finishing? Oh no, I guess from unranked at the beginning of the season to finishing in the AP top 10. It's tough because we don't have our AP top 25 preseason. There's all kinds of way too early. So we've got a lot of wiggle room, at least in terms of a team that might not be ranked that could end up finishing strong. Do any come to mind for our friend Connor?
Florida State.
They definitely won't be ranked at the beginning of the year.
No. I would say of the Big 12 jumble, Utah has the most history of being an AP team. So I would say out of the Big 10, I would say Utah has the best chance of doing that. Big 10, Michigan will probably. Do you think Michigan will be ranked to start the year?
I
would bet they are.
I would bet they're 23.
Yeah. Then I'll go USC out of the Big 10 and out of the
USC might be the best bet, actually.
Yeah, I know. I'm a smart voter. I'm a smart bettor. Who's not? That's the thing. It's like trying to find the unranked SEC team when every single one of them will probably be ranked except for Mississippi State. I will go. See, Florida's going to get buzz. Like Florida will be the team that gets ranked just based on maybe not anything that they've actually done. So I don't know if Florida's a good choice here. So I will say Oklahoma because I think there's a decent, very good chance Oklahoma won't start the season ranked.
Very good chance they will not start the season ranked. I agree with that. Oklahoma from the SEC, USC from the Big 10, Florida State from the ACC, Utah from the Big 12. There you go, Connor. 4 candidates who could start the year unranked and then end up finishing inside the AP top 10. We got a big week on deck for you. As we get back on Monday, 11 a.m. Eastern time, we'll be rolling through some of our bold predictions for the 2025 season. Bud and Danny back in the fold as well. And you can follow him on Twitter at Tom Fornelli. You can follow me at Chip_Patterson. Tom, thank you very much.
Thank you.